A lie flies and the truth only limps after it. But, well, let's be honest, it can't help things to put the truth in the hands of two real lame ducks. On Radio Canada's Question Politique, Alexandra Ben Said.
But before starting this big interview, let's go back to last Sunday's show.
I'm going to have to put today's video in context. Normally, I have to do this when the video clip doesn't include enough information to understand what it's about. What's the point of doing it properly? We're uncompromising. We fight hand in hand with the state and the European Union against all forms of disinformation. One tactic used to manipulate public opinion is decontextualization. That's not true here. I didn't cut anything. The show just started and the full topic is in the video. The problem is that there are journalists who won't provide any context or explanation. It's as if they're trying to downplay what happened.
Many listeners wrote to us about a few minutes segment during this hour of the program.
Well, if it's just a few minutes. So, following the show Question Politique on November 9th, many listeners pointed out several lies from the journalist. It quickly turns into disinformation. Radio France was the subject of a complaint from La France Insoumise.
It was about the new mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdani, and his positions on October 7th, the Intifada, and the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees.
And so, his positions, right? No, because when you say it like that, well, we don't know. Even if we start to think there might be a little connection between him and the Intifada. No, but it's sneaky not to specify. It's a bit like if you said Regis Macron and his positions on pedophilia and prison. Without more context, maybe she said all pedophiles belong in prison, but you could also think she believes that if there's grass on the field, play ball, and at 39 you can sleep with 14-year-olds. It would be sneaky not to specify.
Since Tuesday, we issued clarifications and corrections.
He's only talking about clarifications and corrections. A fault half admitted is a quarter forgiven. So, my mea culpa, maybe they'll clarify all this now.
You will find them on our website.
Well, no. So, on the site, which one? Do you have a link? No, you need to...
You have to search. The rigor of information is our cardinal value.
The rigor of information. That phrase couldn't have come at a better time. As for the medication I prescribed you, I'm not sure it works. Nor about the side effects. I haven't read the instructions either. But anyway, I prefer to tell you out of scientific rigor. Morning, noon, and night. To be rigorous, we would have had to expose the nonsense being spouted at least 3 or 4 times longer in 3 or 4 times as many shows. And our favorite fact-checkers won't tell us otherwise. To contradict the effect of a lie thrown out during prime time, it would take hours of explanations. We know Brandolini's law, Tristan. Step on the gas a little, please. Explanations, unfortunately, not really listened to when they're given by someone as boring as yours truly, Tristan Mendes France. The audience influenced by this journalist's lies the week before might not have been paying attention during this brief challenge. And even if that was the case, how many actually took the time to go check it on the internet? Especially since you still have to get your brain back in gear a bit to understand what we're talking about. Radio's main purpose is to let you listen while doing other things. Driving, doing DIY, drinking. So you're not going to go check on the internet? Well, obviously I did. It took me a little while to find the right page because it's not on the France Info website. No, it's on the France Inter one. Question Politique has been a radio show for over 25 years and has only been on TV for less than 10 years. On the website, they downplayed the facts less than they did live, referring to them as factual errors. On the other hand, you had to read a whole wall of text and still wouldn't learn about these errors, but would be redirected to the show's page where initially there was no sign of the erratum. Except at the bottom of the page where you find a message to our listeners dated November 11, 2025. A rather sloppy message that really requires listening to the 1-hour show. I also decided not to explain what it was about. First, because it's not essential to understand the issue presented in this video. No, it's too silly. And above all, it's a good example. How many of you will go look for the information even if I make it easy for you by giving you the link in the description and sharing the time code for the part of the show? How many would have done it if I hadn't spoken up? I would have gone. No, I'm kidding. But to sum up, I would say she used a tactic to manipulate public opinion.
A smear tactic.
When the wind turned against her, everything backfired.
Question Politique remains the #1 political show on radio on Sundays by far. Those are the latest Médiamétrie figures.
Well, you have to take advantage of it. It's the only source given in the show, the Médiamétrie figures. And surprisingly, I still wanted to check. That's unlucky, but maybe it's a sign. 404 error, no. Well, France Inter really is the most listened to radio station, which is a little bit scary. And this political show is no exception. France Inter is the urinal of the Maison de la Radio. Well, I can tell you when it comes to politics, we're not exactly being showered with intelligence. On the other hand, even if the numbers are probably true, is it still a reliable source when you know that? Médiamétrie is a company whose shareholders are 35% TV channels and 29% radio stations, including 13 to 13.5% Radio France, which owns France Inter. Isn't that kind of a conflict of interest? I mean, I don't know.
Thank you. Your trust honors us and it also obliges us.
Let me be clear, media exposure, views, audience, that doesn't prove quality, no. But on the other hand, indeed, it must, or at least it should, create obligations.
A word about Alex Boulaguet?
I don't give a damn, almost.
Yes, during the interview he did indeed use some vague and sometimes inaccurate phrases.
She attributed dangerous statements to the mayor of New York that he never actually said. Even in her correction on the website, she didn't downplay it that much. Ms. Mamdani never publicly used that expression. Now you can't say that, referring to what she had said.
If I may have offended listeners and viewers, I apologize.
But she's reading. She probably doesn't even mean a word of it. Maybe she didn't even write her own apology. In my opinion, she's probably thinking, I don't give a damn. But there wasn't.
On my part, any partisan intent.
I couldn't even say if it's bad faith or incompetence. Personally, for me, France Inter, I see it politically as straight up soft left Glucksmann style. So, obviously, criticizing La France Insoumise is almost a political necessity. I don't know if you know, but I'm not really with LFI.
I wouldn't have guessed.
But to go and drop such big crap in front of Manuel Bompard, one of the few in Sumi who really knows his stuff, you really had to be foolish, huh?
No intention to distort the facts on issues that are indeed extremely complex.
So no, it wasn't complex at all. And in the end, either you made up facts, or you repeated them from someone who made them up, and you didn't even cross-check the information. In any case, that makes you a bad journalist.
Yet you still have
A clue about her journalistic level.
France Inter.
And to conclude this clarification, I would like to add that online harassment is unacceptable. It is also punishable by law.
Well, I guess there wasn't enough time to list and correct the mistakes live. But when it comes to throwing out a nice little threat, there's always time. It's so obvious they're upset about being corrected. They're being stubborn. I saw how unwillingly they did it. In my opinion, they were forced to. Yeah, by the Radio France mediation service. By the way, there's something I found a little strange. It's saying that outside journalists invited on air will now be unaware of the editorial verification procedures applied to all France Inter programs. First of all, normally, if it's applied to the programs, it's applied to the journalists who are part of them. And besides, it seems so logical that all journalists should do it that it's almost a bit late to only require it now. And also, Alex Boulaguet is at France Inter every day. So calling her an external journalist is kind of an easy way out. Besides, her employer is France Télévisions. And it's reassuring to know that they don't require anything. It's not to defend her, but the truth kind of depends on when you state it. And in this case, she was following our editorial line. There's a principle that should be in everyone's mind, especially journalists. When it comes to the truthfulness of information, the burden of proof lies with the person making the claim. What can be asserted without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. And that's not a new idea, it was already part of Roman law. Basically, it means that when you make a claim, you have to be able to prove it. If Alex had done her job properly, by having the date, the place, the context, or even an audio recording to back up what she was saying, she would not only have gained credibility, but also put her political opponent in a tough spot. He's not a political opponent, she's a journalist, so, okay. That's how politicians and journalists should work, especially the latter, who are supposed to prepare for interviews. Debates would be clearer, and it would be an effective way to fight misinformation. Yeah, but there's something more urgent. Fighting misinformation on social media.
Today, no one is protected against online manipulation.
I don't know if blaming others is the solution.
One of the tactics used to manipulate opinion is scapegoating. Can you spot the signs?
Maybe it would be good to try to set an example. Why not by requiring the media landscape to do a bit better than just a small correction on a website? Especially when the misinformation was spread to millions of listeners. Yeah, like a primetime show where everyone would come on fully and shamefacedly apologize for all the nonsense they said on the previous show and set the record straight. And that the correction matches the extent of the harm done? Well, yeah, When 5 million people are affected by misinformation, you have to set things right by reaching several times more people. Yeah, but that means Macron would have to host a daily show just to handle all his lies and broken promises. Hey friends, it's time for the 8 p.m. news with Macron. 20 minutes of dull discussions that will end with a whipping from Brigitte. I added that part because I like it. He'll probably get higher ratings than usual. That's the only way the truth will take off in squadrons to bombard the lies, but we've already done that. Us with Julian Pin. And Rudy Reichstein, why not also try to establish a kind of fundamental moral requirement aimed at strengthening the legitimacy, trust and credibility of politicians and journalists by encouraging them to act with sincerity and consistency in the service of truth? And we could call this the duty to set an example. Huh? What, that already exists? Paradoxa. Why a paradox? Yeah, that's what there is. The music, me, I've never been drunk in math. Gabriel Apollinatal, I'm a mess. The son of a slut. If you want a paradox, you have it on this keyboard. If you want a paradox...
It's on this keyboard. In the interest of the United States, I agree.
Times are tough on YouTube, so a big thank you to those who give the algorithm a nudge and also to those who support me on Tipeee. See you soon.
Yes. Thank you.
I am kind.